Okay, tell me honest and true, how many of you were really nervous when you seen that lineup come out? I know I was. Chelsea play host to Wolverhampton Wolves and emerge 3-0 winners. Let's get into it.
And blue is the colour. Essien! Drogba! Lampard! That could be the championship.
Greetings! Welcome back to Couch Critic with me, Dennis P. What is your Chelsea match review show, but more specifically a tactical synopsis of Chelsea's performance against the Wolves. But before I get into all that, ladies and gentlemen, do me a big favor, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell notification button to keep up with the latest and the newest. And in case you didn't know, I do have a sponsor for the show. They go by the name of Major League Socks. And fellas, if you ever want to walk in the footsteps of greatness, you know what to do. Hit them up. The link will be in the description. Okay, so you're all probably wondering, where the hell is this guy? He's certainly not on the couch, and he's certainly not in Toronto, Canada. And you would be right on both accounts. I am in sunny Jamaica. Ocho Rios, just doing a little family vacay, but I did have to stop in quickly and do this quick match review just to let you guys know that I'm really excited about what I'm seeing from Chelsea. What we're going to be speaking on today is basically that shape again. Graham Potter once again varying the shape, going to a 4-3-3, 4-2-3-1. We're going to be looking at just the performances again. The same things keep rearing their ugly head, unfortunately. Chelsea just not taking opportunities. And I mean, for the first time in a long time, I'm just going to be focusing on the opposition because the Wolves were just horrific throughout the game. But just gonna give you a quick synopsis because of course you know my family's here and whatnot. We got to get back on that beach, but quick synopsis, we're gonna get right into it. Now, if you're anything like me, you would have saw that lineup today and been very nervous about Chelsea's ability to get the 3 points. And mainly it was just down to the fact that we had a lot of players on the pitch that were out of form and haven't really been playing good football, and a lot of wholesale changes. Guys that were in form were dropped and in favor for guys that haven't played a lot of football. I'm speaking of the likes of Christian Pulisic, obviously Havertz not in the greatest form, Mason Mount not in the greatest form, Koulibaly not in the greatest form, Cucurella coming back from injury, Azpilicueta, is he past it? Is today's performance enough to suggest that he's still got some legs for this team, but clearly not in favor? So again, a lot of substitutions into the starting 11, and it was a reason for panic. I'm not gonna lie. We don't score a lot of goals to begin with. And you know, I was worried about whether or not we were going to be able to find the answers and solutions in the final third. And lucky enough for us, we, especially in that first half, we didn't really have to build a lot. Like a lot of the opportunities that were afforded to us were gifted by that really poor Wolverhampton side. Like time and time again, Chelsea were put in positions where they could just basically 1 and 2 passes and they're in behind the defense. Unfortunately, these opportunities, as frequently as they did come, just were not taken at a high enough clip. You know, you saw Kai Havertz get into the box and be wasteful. You saw Mason Mount get there and be wasteful, not even hitting the target. You saw Pulisic get there and be wasteful. Like, it just, the list goes on and on. And Ruben Loftus-Cheek came in. You know, Jorginho had a good strike and could not score. It's just time and time again that first half, Chelsea were getting into great areas, but could not find the solution, you know. And it wasn't down to, you know, the Wolves defense being, you know, just snuffing out any of our attacking moves or being really compact, because they're the exact opposite. If you watch that game, the Wolves played an open game. Like, they had absolutely no midfield. We dominated that game, especially in the first half, for large chunks, where Chelsea just kept on regaining possession and going forward again, regaining possession and threatening the box again. And unfortunately, we just could not find that one killer blow. Thought Azpilicueta had a fantastic game on the right. Put in a lot of telling balls that on another day, if somebody else was on the pitch, you know they would have taken them. Aubameyang, he flashed one across the 6, and you know that in another situation when you have Aubameyang, who's always ready to be attacking that 6-yard box, he'd be there. Or back post, you have Raheem Sterling, who's very good at attacking back post. You know, we just didn't have the personnel to make use of the good service that we were afforded by Azpilicueta. Ageless wonder, a guy that can't necessarily give you those performances, you know, week after week after week, but he could come in and give you, you know, a performance, especially against you know, an opposition like the Wolves, who were just not at it, no midfield, no real intensity into their game whatsoever, and we took full advantage of that. Now, before the kickoff, a lot of people were trying to figure out what Chelsea's shape is going to be going into the match, and I mean, it looked a lot like a 4-3-3 for the most part, but when we attacked, it looked very similar to what we did versus Salzburg in Potter's first game, which I was at, by the way. And it was like a 3-3-4 with Cucurella, Koulibaly in the middle, and then of course Trev Chalobah had a fantastic game, man, coming off the bench again and just not playing a foot wrong. We'll get into him later, but yeah, for the most part the back three played very, very well, and we had of course a midfield three of basically at the base we had Jorginho and Ruben Loftus-Cheek, but just ahead of them it was either one of Gallagher or Mason Mount making up that midfield three depending on where the play was being run. And again, like Azpilicueta basically providing a lot of the width on the right, and on the other side we had Pulisic providing the width. And again, like I said, very, very similar to what we saw versus Salzburg, and it was effective once again. We dominated the midfield, we had control of the ball. Every time there was a loose ball, we were there to intercept. And to the credit of Graham Potter, he basically rested a lot of key players and got great performances off the bench. And this is the continuity that you like to see in a lineup, in a squad. You want to see guys come in and pick up where the other guys left off. Obviously, Kai Havertz comes in for Aubameyang, gets his goal. Missed a lot of chances, unfortunately, but the most important thing for me is seeing a striker hit the back of the net. He was able to do that. Pulisic coming in for Raheem Sterling, and again, well-taken goal from the left. Again, both of these guys were largely wasteful for most of the game, but when their number was called and they had to deliver, they did. Obviously, Kai Havertz being the match winner and Pulisic pretty much sealing it with a lovely, lovely finish with his left. As far as the shape goes defensively and interested, I'm still trying to figure out whether or not Graham Potter is just a little bit too cavalier, or if he just extremely trusts, like has supreme trust for somebody like Cucurella, because ultimately, when you play that 3-3-4 at the back, you're basically asking Christian Pulisic to basically threaten the back line throughout the game, and you're leaving that entire left flank to the defense of Cucurella. And to his credit, he did extremely well. Obviously, he had to deal with Adama Traore, who did get the beating of him on a couple times, but to no real avail. So, you got to really think, is it that Graham Potter trusts Cucurella so heavily that he knows that in 1v1 situations he's not going to make a lot of mistakes, or is he just not very respectful of his opponent's ability to play down the flanks? Because this particular style, this particular setup leaves a lot of room in those wide areas when you consider the space between Pulisic and, of course, Cucurella, and then on the right flank you have the space afforded by Azpilicueta and Trev Chalobah. Like, there's a big gap of space there, but again, I don't know if Graham Potter just recognized that and saw that as an area where they didn't have to worry about it too much because they had the right personnel on the pitch to snuff it out, or if he's just like, yo, dude, just go kill these guys. Either way, I commend him for taking that approach to the game. There's a bravery there as well, pushing that many bodies forward, looking for answers in the final third. I applaud that, and long may it continue, really. This is what you want from a Chelsea manager. With the attacking talent that we can assemble on the pitch, you want guys that are a little bit more brave and pushing bodies forward into that final third. Now, with that said, we did control the midfield for the most part. I really did like what we saw in the midfield between Jorginho, Ruben Loftus-Cheek, Mason Mount, and of course Gallagher. I thought Gallagher had another great game. Came onto the pitch, played the right side, but played right sort of like 8-10, and was just brilliant in there. A lot of the good things that Chelsea were able to do in this game came down that right flank, and it was largely down to Azpilicueta and Gallagher just taking the game and dictating the tempo, from that particular position. Granted, a lot of the opportunities that we were afforded throughout that game were down to Wolves' errors we were able to capitalize on in terms of regaining possession and whatnot in great areas. But I really do think that the touches that were given to Azpilicueta and Gallagher were very, very good. They're making good decisions on the ball, playing it into attackers when the opportunities presented themselves. And overall, I thought that the game wasn't really passing them by. Azpilicueta met the responsibility of the game and played some fantastic balls into the final third, played some fantastic crosses into the box that could have been attacked. In the case of Conor Gallagher, I thought that he had useful touches all through that first half, whether it was gifted to him or not. The the decisions that he made on the pitch in possession of the football, the ones that I want to see from my number 8s. Only thing that was missing for me was just the opportunity for him to advance into the final third, get into that box like a la Frankie Lampard, and just crack a shot. I think a lot of those opportunities fell more readily to Mason Mount and Kai Havertz, obviously Pulisic being a striker as well. But you would like to see him, and maybe that's just tactical. Maybe as the game wore on, if the game would have stayed the way it was, a 0-0 in the first half, you would have seen them be a little bit more adventurous, and get more bodies into the box. But on the display of form that we had right now, we really didn't need a lot of box presence. We just needed more guys that were able to finish opportunities, because they were there plentiful. There's this plentiful opportunities. Now, I thought defensively, Chelsea were impeccable. I thought that the 3 defenders, being Cucurella, Koulibaly, who basically plays the Thiago Silva role, and then obviously Trev Chalobah, played fantastically well. I don't really consider Azpilicueta as the defender. Of course, he marshaled up and down the right flank, but for the most part, he wasn't really asked to defend as much. That he left that responsibility to Trevor Chalobah, and man, he played fantastically. These are the games that you expect him to do really well in, against the Wolves, who don't really look to be in possession of the football a lot. They're looking to play on the counter. But in the second half and whatnot, where Adama Traore found himself in space and, threatened Cucurella. But for the most part, I really did feel like Cucurella played an extremely incredible match. When you consider he was matched up against a guy that's pacey, powerful, and tricky, like Adama Traore. I thought that he played extremely well. He marshaled him the entire game. Whenever he got himself into trouble, you saw Koulibaly come over and help and clean things up. And as a back 3, they functioned incredibly well. I really do think that we have a future in Koulibaly in that, central defender role, just because he's better at he's obviously decent at reading the play, but when you look at the pace of the Prem, and what we saw in the first few games, you see him get caught out in yellows, and he'd always have to take a cynical foul just to, just to break up a potential counterattack. But in that deeper role, where he's afforded a little bit more time to think and react, you saw him play impeccably well. Everything that he did in that back 3 today led to me to believe that he was a marshal in the back, a guy that was taking command of that back 3, and just snuffing out the danger. Obviously, he had an inexperienced Trev Chalobah on one side, and then he had basically a left-sided, winger, left wing back, left fullback on his left, and a lot of the responsibility in terms of reading where the defensive actions are came down to him, and I thought that he did that incredibly well. Times that he did have opportunities to go forward and thrust into the final third, or get on the ball and just play the ball, be involved in the build-up. It left something to be desired for me. I'm going to be honest. I thought that when we were looking to switch from left to right, and he is switching, these are 40, 50-yard passes, not easy, especially when you consider that for the most part he was using his left leg to do that. It left something to be desired there. I'd rather him, if he's going to be switching the ball, 40, 50, 60, I want him to be on his strongest leg. And, he basically used predominantly his left, and a lot of the passes were just wayward. So, again, just for me, in those situations, you just want to be making the right decisions at all time. If you have time to get on your right and just crossfield pass it there, I would rather see that than see him, first time hit left, off his left, and then see it drift out of bounds or send the receiver into an area where he's not comfortable handling the ball. Going forward, I think that he's capable on the ball. He can range those passes out, but again, I would just rather see him be a little bit more safe and use the ball better. I'd just like to end by saying this, and this is remontada for me, true remontada. Kepa Arrizabalaga has been much maligned as Chelsea keeper since Maurizio Sarri has left his club. He's been much maligned. Even before that, you can argue that he was much maligned then, but man, has he persevered and, gotten to the point where you can trust him in net. I remember I said a few games back where, Mendy was out of form. Is it time to see Kepa return to the, in between the net? And, it met with consternation and not the best reviews. People thinking that I'm being a little bit too, quick to judge. It's the beginning of the season, but this is not just the beginning of the season. It wasn't just the beginning of the season for me. I don't think that Mendy's been in form for much of 2022, and if we're rewarding on meritocracy, you'd have to think that Kepa has an opportunity to get back into the squad. And if he takes those opportunities, has, the opportunity to kick on, really. And I think that he's done that. Like, I really do think that he's done that. Granted, he hasn't really been tested immensely. Like, it's not like we're the way that we're playing leaves a lot of high danger opportunities, but when they do come, I feel like Kepa's done an incredible job at being in the right place at the right time and snuffing out the danger. And a couple of years ago, one of the problems that I had with Kepa wasn't so much about his shot saving ability. It was basically his ability to stay focused in the game. Like, when you're only getting like 2 or 3 chances a game to impact it and make an impactful save, it just seemed like his concentration levels were way too low for a team like Chelsea, who are in possession of the football 60-70% of the time. And the focus wasn't there half the time. So, I think that he's grown, he's matured in that respect, because today, a perfect example, there wasn't really a whole lot of opportunities for him to, really cement himself in the game, get himself going or whatnot. But the ones that did come to him, he was very good at snuffing them out quickly, sharply. There's one situation at the top of the box. I'm not sure who the striker was. It might even have been Mateos, if I'm not mistaken. And he was just right there, Johnny on the spot to make a diving save with his fists and stuff like that. And, on another day, like the Kepa of old, that would have probably been their only real shot on target, probably the entire match. And, he would just been late getting across, and, the score's 1-1 at that point. But for whatever reason, I don't know if it's just like he sees an opportunity for him to come back into the side. He sees a World Cup opportunity in Spain. Whatever it may be, this guy's really, really stepped up his game the last little while. And I don't think that he deserves to be dropped in any situation at this point in time. He's playing really well with his feet. He doesn't take any chances in possession, which is something that we saw under Mendy. He's a guy that, like, when he knows that he's under pressure, he just clears it. And at the same time, he picks better passes. Like that mid-range pass is just so important when you're being pressed high up the pitch. That pass out to the flanks between like 30 to 45 yards, where you have either Reece James or Cucurella or whoever, Azpilicueta was out there a lot today. You really have to be pinpoint with that, because those are the areas that are going to be, soft in terms of where the press is. And if you're not accurate with those passes, if they're a little bit too long, it goes out of bound. If it's not to the liking of the receiver, in this situation, Cucurella or Azpilicueta, they're likely to be pressured right away and, turn it over. So it has to be, that's the one pass coming up from the keeper that has to be pinpoint accurate. And I think that Kepa is better at that than Mendy, and today was another good example of that. But, a clean sheet, that's what you ask for as a keeper. Be there when we need you to be, when the opportunities present themselves, and he's been all of that and more. So I want to see him continue at this point in time, and may that be a long run, because if he stays in the side, you notice because he's having a good run of form and not just because he's favored over Mendy. But I do think I'm going to wrap it up there. Ladies and gentlemen, here I am in Ocho Rios giving you the match review. Chelsea versus Wolves, and what a game. Like, let's just be honest here. The Wolves are a team in a multitude of turmoil. They're just not very good. They don't have, the midfield to cope with top teams in the Premier League. That's for damn sure. And with the likes of Neves and Neto again out injured, there's just no chance for them to really have any sort of semblance of where they wanted, the areas they wanted to attack. Thought they got some good minutes from Adama Traore, but again, with no end product whatsoever. He gets into those areas very effortlessly, but once he gets there, it's very hard for him to find that final solution. So, we took advantage of that. We took advantage of the extra possessions with the giveaways from the Wolves in the final third, and eventually we were able to come knocking and finally score goals. And 3 strikers were scoring too. How often can you say that in the Chelsea side, where you see 3 strikers come onto the pitch and score goals, in the likes of Pulisic, Havertz, and then Broja getting his debut and a win there? Just a fantastic display. He had one more opportunity where I think Koba made a play, and he just made the wrong pass, really, essentially. And for on a better day, that's probably 2 for Broja, first 2 goals for Chelsea. But pass was a little wayward, and then in the end, he couldn't get on it. But made up for it again. Kova with a beautiful through ball. Roja gets on it, takes a couple touches, composes himself, and then crushes it in the corner. Great way to get your first goal for Chelsea, But we move. We got a very, very important game. I know I say this every time we play in the Champions League, but it's true. The fact that we lost the first game and then we drew the second game puts us under an immense amount of pressure. Of course, we did bounce back against AC Milan last week, and I need them to do the exact same this game coming up against AC Milan, because, man, if we can do that, I think we're back in good stead in terms of qualification, but no guarantees there. We're going to the San Siro, never an easy place to win. Of course, my name is Dennis, so I have a special affinity to that with Dennis Weiss scoring a fucking great goal in the San Siro, but this is a different team, different era, and all that, and we have to take the opportunities that are presented to us. So, with that said, I am going to leave it there. Hopefully, Chelsea can come out on that Tuesday, get the starters back in, and fire on all cylinders. Because if we get 3 points there, we're in good stead. But you know what to do. Until then, keep the blue flag flying high and up the Chelsea. Peace.